Welcome back for another session of Winning on Taxes. And today we're going to focus on what happens when the worst happens. When someone loses their job through illness, sickness, you go through a nasty divorce, or you have to move and start over. It's a real reality facing a lot of people, especially with all the cuts to the federal government that people are facing across the country. So again, we have thousands of people losing their employment in Washington, D.C., in Los Angeles, New York, every major city, because again, these government cuts are affecting everybody across the country. Well, every city, every metropolitan area, and even a lot of rural areas. So it's a real thing. Whether or not you support the cuts, it affects real people. So we want to focus on how to help you if you're going through the cut or a difficult time in your life. What kind of options are available to you? So we completely get this is a very difficult, trying time, and we have people call us stressed out all the time. There are options. There is a light at the end of the tunnel, but it's very important that you reach out and get good information to steer you in the right direction. So a lot of people will depend on family or savings to get through these times. And while that's great if you do have savings or you have family that's willing to support you, that eventually runs out. And while it can help in the short term, a lot of people have to turn to get second jobs and you'll just scrape where they can to get funds. So be very careful when you do start accessing retirement accounts, things that will cause and increase your tax burden. There's a lot of people that justify taking money out of those. Avoid that at all costs because it's costing you money that many times you've already paid taxes on, and you're going to get hit with the penalty, and it can be make life even harder for you in the long run. So don't feel like you have to empty out your savings because you owe the IRS or you owe a state tax. There are often options for you, and that's really what we want to talk about. When people call in, we lay out their options. Okay, what kind of savings do you have? What kind of options do you have? Let's do our best to minimize the long-term impact on you and help you long-term deal with these tax situations. So again, we talk about ways to save. If people have a 401k, I'd much rather, well, if you've lost your job, you can't, but if you have a hard time where things are just tough and one spouse has a 401k with their current employer, it can be a good idea to take a loan out against that rather than cashing out the 401k. Yes, you have to pay that back, but you're not going to get hit with the penalties. And how bad are the penalties? There's a 10% penalty right off the top that increases your taxable burden. So if you don't have enough taxes withheld when you take amounts out, there's a 10% penalty plus additional taxes. The IRS treats it as roughly a 20% penalty for taking money out. Now that again depends on your particular situation. So it makes a lot more sense rather than getting hit with that 20% penalty to take a loan out on any assets that you can. Help use that to get you through a difficult time. That way you're not getting hit with the additional tax burden while you're already in a bad situation. So there are ways to get second loans. You can look at maybe accessing some of the equity in your home if possible. But again, it is something a lot of people are facing, a lot of people are concerned about. Now, does the IRS have options to deal with this? Absolutely. So we're going to talk about not only the IRS in this show and what happens when someone loses their job, they have a serious illness, or they quit their job. Again, there's many different reasons why people will leave their jobs, or in many cases today, get fired or laid off. It could be health, it could be mental state, it could be you had to move to a different state, you couldn't afford to live in a state anymore. There's all kinds of reasons. And believe it or not, the IRS can be very sympathetic to a lot of those reasons. And it's not just the IRS. So there are some states that if you lose your job, they automatically give you some time. And we're going to talk about in this episode, how do you ask for certain hold periods or time to get back on your feet, and some of those things that, again, just happen in life, because life happens. If it hasn't happened to you yet, where some major event happened, it can take your economic security and just blow it up. So that's why it's so important to be prepared, be able to get good advice to help guide you through this. And again, we're going to talk about different states. Some of them offer great programs, some don't. But we're going to walk you through this. And if you have any questions, you can always call us or find us at Guardian Tax Law PLLC, or our phone number is 520-485-7371. And we'll be right back after this break.